in France in the 1920s and 30s that led to the Vichy regime, the surrender to the Nazis. So we've seen these things. If you know history, you know that every time you deregulate, every time you privatize, every time you attack government, you create a free rein for the speculators and for the Wall Street and City of London bankers. Now, the fact that the Democratic Party went along with it is a bit of tragedy. The fact that we now have a potential to change it, and yet we appear to be on the way to nominating someone who's a puppet for these interests. You know, Obama is not slated to win. And here's something that's just astonishing. As terrible as the Republicans have been, and as pathetic as John McCain is, I mean, he couldn't even lead a bunch of senior citizens over to the popcorn truck. You know, this is not a leader. He's boring. He has no solutions.
Yeah.
How can he be even in the polls or even in the same ballpark with Obama?
Yeah.
So what's happened, and I'll tell you, this is something else I know because I work with people in the Democratic Party, including a lot of people who tried to convince me to support Obama.
Right.
A lot of older African Americans who initially were for Hillary, and then after South Carolina and the demonization of Bill, they said, okay, look, this may be our only hope. And now they're being tossed under the train as quickly as Farrakhan and Reverend Wright were. Obama's not doing anything for African Americans. His policies are not going to help the African American community because he doesn't support policies that will help those in the lower 80% of the family income brackets.
He talks about a middle-class tax cut. I'm really, get $1,000 back in your pocket. It's like we don't need tax cut. We need jobs. We need industries.
Come on, it's like Bush's stimulus plan, which LaRouche said they probably sold to him by convincing him it was some kind of a sex deal. Look at this thing. $600 per person is going to somehow revive American industry. What a joke.
Yeah.
But, here's the deeper point on this. All of this was predictable. If you go back, and there's an interesting book by Matt Bai. I don't know if you've read it. It's called The Argument, Billionaires, Bloggers. And it talks about how Howard Dean was used by Soros and others to promote this phony progressive agenda, which was oriented toward taking over the party, but not offering policy alternatives. And so everyone just assumed after 2004 that the Democrats and the country was turning against the war. Therefore, if we have an anti-war candidate, we can win. Now, whatever you think about Hillary's attempt to finesse her vote, Obama got a free ride by saying, well, I gave one speech that I was against the war. Now we look at what he's saying. He's going to refine his policy. I don't think anybody should trust anything that he says. The problem, now you have to start looking at the vice presidential question. And one name keeps appearing for both parties. And beware of this man, Michael Bloomberg, the mayor of New York.
I haven't heard him that much, but just a little bit. But he's been mentioned for both parties as VP.
Yeah, and he's a Mussolini fascist. He's working hand in hand with Schwarzenegger. The two of them call each other soulmates.
Right.
And there's a match made in hell.
Ooh,
my gosh.
Twins.
Yeah, and in this case, Bloomberg's worth $40 billion, and Schwarzenegger, is what he is, a disaster for California.
Yes.
You could have a nuclear strike on California, and it wouldn't do nearly the damage that Schwarzenegger has done. Now, the point is that we've got to have an American people that wakes itself up, doesn't just go for what's popular. The media created Obama. The media made him into a rock star. They're trying to have a Nuremberg-style rally at the Democratic Convention at this Invesco field. People really have to take a look at what is happening and what we need. And I want to give our 800 number for people to call. Go on our website, LaRouchePAC.com. It'll whet your appetite. But if you want to get involved and really do something and get some literature, call us. It's a toll-free number. Wait till tomorrow morning. But 800-922-2907. That's 800-922-2907. And that will send you some free literature. You can talk to some of our people. And get underneath it, get behind the story. What's really going on in this country? Did we get sold another bill of goods? And this time, we may not survive. We barely have made it through Bush and Cheney.
Yeah.
Another 4 years, I don't know whether the country can survive.
So is the taking over the Democratic Party complete? And do we see that because of the actions of Nancy Pelosi and all of those who, here they are, the so-called majority, but yet they go with FISA. They don't do anything about impeachment.
I'm really glad you brought up Pelosi because, you know, when we won in 2006, and when I say we, the Democrats took the House, took the Senate, and there was a possibility to go with the Kucinich impeachment bill. There was a possibility to roll back some of these things. Pelosi took it all off the table.
That's right.
Just recently, two things she did. LaRouche drafted something called the Homeowner and Bank Protection Act to have a national moratorium on foreclosures and Roosevelt-style bankruptcy regulation of banks. She took it off the table and said, no, we're going to have Barney Frank introduce legislation that'll be good and it'll be fine, it'll protect homeowners. And we said Barney Frank is going to do the bidding of the banks and the lending institutions. He drafted a bill. It's going through the Congress. It's stalled in the Senate right now. It passed the House. But last week, the Washington Post wrote an article that said Credit Suisse and Bank of America wrote the Frank bill.
Get out.
So this is Pelosi, who is a puppet of Felix Rohatyn, who's diminishing the Democratic Party in Congress. And then you add to that the efforts to shut down the convention, to not allow Hillary to speak, to not allow a roll call vote because they're afraid it might get out of control. But I'll tell you, Eben, I've been talking to a lot of people who are planning on going to Denver and waging a fight.